I'm standing now with Thomas Christensen, who it's really because of the President of the General Assembly and the entire office that we are here today. Talk to us about what's going on and how this day is going for you so far.
Well, it's a day we've been thinking about for a long time. You know, there are meetings every day at the UN, but to have a meeting or an event that makes a difference, that has the ambition to help change the world, then you really have to think through all the elements of it. How do you make sure that governments come at the highest level, that civil society and business also find it engaging? How do you cast it in a way that is also attractive to a global public, that they actually look at what you're doing? And hence we've been trying to combine sort of traditional UN format, world leaders who stand on the stage and talk, with workshops that take place in the basement where people have a free conversation, with debates in one of the chambers where there's also pretty free discussion on issues like finance, technology. How do you get going in achieving these goals? Because the world agreed on these 17 development goals and the climate agreement last year, but the understanding on how we're actually going to do it, how are we going to implement, how are we going to find the money, the technology, the people, that discussion has not finished yet. And it's sort of to kickstart that and to move it further that we're doing this today.
And there's no better place to be doing all that than from here within the UN. For the people who are watching at home, you touched on technology, you touched on the people and the people who would need to use that technology. So for the people who are at home or watching this from their office, how do we take this from such a macro level to a micro level to say, starting today, this is how you can get involved?
Well, starting from today, be in touch with your government, with your minister, but also with the people who supply your daily goods, or with organizations that help organize, say, consumer outreach, or if you're interested in clean technology. Really what we're trying to do here is to find ways of global cooperation between governments, between civil society, that can help bring clean, green technologies to scale while bringing prices down. Say, the more people buy a solar panel, the more it becomes a household item, the more companies like, for example, IKEA, they start having solar panels on their shelf. So when you go and buy a rack or a bookshelf, you also buy a solar panel that you put out, and suddenly you have clean energy for your stereo, for your household machines. And it's only by consumers also demanding those types of products and that type of behavior from governments, from business, and from their fellow citizens, that this actually works. So it has to, while the major policies are set by governments, the demand also has to come from citizens.
And I think that's something that I hear a lot when I'm working as a volunteer or I'm working with today's youth. Many people feel like, I'm just one voice, what could I really do to make a difference? And I think, to your point, a whisper can be a shout when you are doing something to create change.
And what social media allows us to do now is to collect all those single voices, and if there are enough single voices that shout and tweet and are active also on our webpage, then suddenly you have a groundswell where you can say, this is really important. To give you an example, when we organized the climate summit for the Secretary General in 2014, citizens in New York decided to have a climate march. Prior to that, there were maybe 400,000 people walking in that march. But because of social media, that message from the march and the climate summit were amplified and reached maybe a total of 3 billion people around the world.
It's amazing.
And that sort of helped propel into also the process of negotiating the SDGs, the goals, and the climate agreement, so that politicians felt emboldened actually to take very tough decisions for them, but also business leaders felt empowered to maybe walk the extra mile in energy efficiency and water efficiency and products that are clean and that are maybe a bit more expensive to produce, but where they still feel there's a demand. People actually want food that is not contaminated. They want water that is not contaminated. there are parts of the world where we know that pollution is very high, and you can see that when consumers in those countries have the choice, they would rather buy something from somewhere else in the world simply because they don't trust that what they get is healthy for them, for their children, and safe. So I think there's a lot of evidence out there that actually people, when given the choice, want to choose the right thing.
And if people want to choose, speaking of choosing the right thing, if people want to choose the right thing for them to support out of the 17 initiatives that are available, where can they go to learn more?
They can start by going to the President of the General Assembly's webpage, that is at un.org/PGA, and under that there are categories for SDGs, for events, and there are also links to where you can engage and where you can hook up. The President has a Twitter page under PGA, and I think he has his blog, and people can comment, and we're basically open for business.
Ready to start the conversation at any time.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Welcome.